Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Marriage is Tougher Than Woodpecker Lips podcast. This is Bryan, joined by my co-host, Paul. We'd like to welcome you to a community meant for the men of the world to share their thoughts and perspectives on marriage. We can learn from each other's experiences and help each other be better husbands. This week's topic is acknowledging your wife's contributions. We're going to talk about that a little bit and tell you exactly what we mean.
Before we jump all the way into the episode, we just like to say thank you. If this is the first time you've found us, thanks for taking the time to check us out. And if you've been rocking with us for a while, we appreciate your time and coming back. We would like to encourage you to lean in the community. If you would search Marriage is Tougher on all social media platforms, you can find us, DM us, catch what people have said about us as well. We do have a website, marriageistougher.com. On that site, if you'd like to be a guest, you can fill out the contact form. There's also our whole list of archived episodes, so you can catch up with us, see what we've been talking about on different topics. We also would like to say, if you get any value from this episode, if you wouldn't mind sharing it for someone that it could make an impact, if it makes an impact with you, we'd greatly appreciate that. And if you have any questions, hit us up in the DMs or hit us up on our website. So let's hop into the show.
Yeah. So, man, I wanted to talk about this because my wife and I are in a new space simply for the fact that she got a new job, right? And now we're working on the same sort of schedule. And I am very quickly learning, not that I didn't necessarily know it before, but I am getting to now, I guess the best way to say it is experience more of a lot of the home duties that she had been taking on. And I will even admit, that I allowed her to take on her own. And by that, I mean, just didn't necessarily participate fully. Right. And so part of my thought in this is that I wanted to acknowledge her for her contributions to the home. I feel like I hadn't done that necessarily to the full extent that I could have. And now that we're sharing a lot more of these duties, I don't want people to get confused and think like, oh, now he's just looking for some acknowledgement. That's not the case. What I'm looking for is I want to let my wife know that more than before, like I see you, right? And I don't know why I wasn't necessarily good at saying such, but we're working really well together right now, and just kind of want to have a conversation about the process of this transition.
Sounds good. Sounds. Anytime we can figure out how to communicate that someone is doing something well, it benefits the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like what you were talking about before. We hopped on like that goodwill jar, just adding to the good things that someone is doing. And when we get a revelation of the fullness of what they were doing, because we might see what they were doing in part, but when we contribute and see, oh, like there's a different feeling when I'm all the way in, right? So I think that's good. And let's have this conversation.
Yeah, man, I think it's the laundry for me. Just to start off with them, because it's the most, man. Oh, the laundry. So what we've figured out to do with the laundry is someone's laundry needs to be done every day. And, we would occasionally be like, we started too late during the night. And done would be, well, it's dried. It's still in the dryer, but it's dried. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm like, all right, we get home no later than 5 o'clock, that laundry goes in. So by the time, the kids are down or whatever, all we have to do now is fold it. And like we're good. It could be put away the next day, but at least it's ready to be put away. You know what I mean? Um, it took me a while to understand what she meant by like there's always laundry.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can see it and you see it piling up and you're like, all right, that one needs to get done, right? Like we can't wait any longer. And I don't know, I'm just feeling it with her now. I think the biggest thing right now is like we're on the same team. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? We're like I said, we're excuse me, I am experiencing this with her, which is giving me a more full appreciation for what it is and all those things that she was doing on her own, no matter what my expectations were, right? Like she was just handling it. And she would, often say, like, I need some help or like this is a lot. And I'm like, you know, I get that, but like you're home most of the time. So I couldn't like wrap my head around what her struggles were because I wasn't necessarily in it, right? And it's not, I don't want people to get it mixed up. Like it's not like that I didn't want to help, but like I was working a full day at work and then a lot of days I was also going right back out to work again in my business. You know what I mean? So there was a lack of availability on my part. And then there was just a lack of energy on my part as well. By the time I get done doing all that, like I'm done. But it wasn't fair to her either. So, you know, throughout the years, we've figured out like I needed to pull myself away from the business. And by doing that, I was made more available. But even in that, I wasn't being fair to her because I would, I guess, call it distracting the children. So she had focused time to be able to do the things that she needed to get done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And this transition now where she's working a full time job, and I'm like, oh, see, I understand this. Right. And it seems like almost silly for me to say, but I felt like, oh, this is the world that I know. So now it's easier for me to contribute more because like I know what you're going through. Does that does that make sense to you?
It does. As you walk all the way through it, I now see I see where you were trying to go with it. It there's a familiarity with the journey, and you understand more fully what's going on. Where before you didn't understand the fullness of what was going on with her, um, just taking care of kind of those duties that she was.
Mm-hmm.
But once you understand, like, okay, I don't know what you do at work, but I know what the brain power and like being away from home is like, and then coming home and still having to take care of responsibilities at home. So I understand that. So now I understand a level of energy that you'll have. I understand a level of mental switch that you're going to have to do. So how can I partner up with you to make this the best for everybody?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I heard you saying. I don't know if that is, but that's what I hear you saying.
Yeah, no, you nailed it. I'm just feeling all of it, and I can't call it that I'm more willing now because I was always willing. I just find myself being more capable. Uh, I think for more than one reason, but for the main reason that I think I can just relate now.
Yeah,
So
I think
it just allows me to see her, struggle a little bit easier.
mhm. I think your deep down your expectations are different as well.
Mm-hmm.
That you now do not expect certain things to get done because she's physically not present to do them. So whether or not she had the time when she was present, you expected it to be done in whatever form or fashion it did. It wasn't like it has to be done some way, but you just expected there more of it would be done because she was present. But
Mhm.
your mind has shifted, and I don't know if this is good or bad, but because she's out of the home and there's no physical ability to get it done, there's no expectation. So now you're like, okay, like I have to help her get this done because there's no other way. While before there was a chance that it could get done, not that it would because of how much of a job it is to raise kids, and there is not as much availability as someone who is not doing that full time would think. Um, but there's always a chance, right? Like if by chance everything works out in a perfect world and the kids are great, then I can now get to some of these tasks. Um, and I think there's just a shift of expectation as well as relatability um, that has helped get to where you are, I think.
That's a good point. I don't think that had crossed my mind yet, but it makes all the sense in the world that my expectations have certainly changed. Um, that's good. Yeah. I,
And that's not
I
even,
feel like I'm going to get roasted for this episode, but I'm here for it,
yeah,
whatever.
I mean, and it's not even a, I think it's a subconscious expectation.
Hmm.
Like, because, right, what you said is like, you knew that she had a lot going on. She did say, hey, I need help and all that stuff. But there was you weren't able to see the full picture of what she was doing because you've never been there for as long as she has. Like maybe if she's
Hmm.
sick or something, you hop in and, you have to take off and you're now there. But you still, even on those days, you still had to go work your business. So,
Right.
you know what I mean? So, like, um, so there's not the full picture of how a full day for her was like.
Hmm.
And you could, and in those moments, it's like, man, I just need to get through this day because it'll be back to normal, quote unquote, when she feels better. But like her normal was that every day. So
Yeah.
it's like if we reflect on what that looks like, and we've talked about this all the time. There's just that societal expectation, even if we're not walking in it, even if we're not consciously thinking about it. Um, there is that gender placement on a female to run the home,
Hmm.
and then especially if you are a full-time working male, and even if you are understanding and know that there's going on, and if you've done it for a little while, it's just a really thick cultural norm that we fight through, and it's deeply embedded in how our society looks at things. um, so not saying you consciously were thinking that, but I think there was an expectation of things to get done, because you weren't coming home saying, "Yeah, you should have did this." Like, obviously, it was not. It's nothing overt, but it's sneakily embedded in how we roll.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's for sure not like this masculine, ideal that she needed to have X, Y, and Z done before I get home,
Right.
dinner on the table,
Mm-hmm.
nothing along those lines at all. I think it was more or less my logical brain trying to make sense of, okay, well, you spend this many hours at home and I spend this many hours outside of the home. I clearly don't have time to help as much as I probably should, right? So, in my logical mind, you would have to take on more of the tasks at home, right? And I don't think I allowed myself the time to think, okay, well, guess what? She still does work. Maybe it's part time, but she still does work. Okay. She also has the kids, right? And has to get this one to school. Now this one to preschool. This one stays home. But it was at a time like, all right, this one's going to school. These other two are staying home with her, and how much attention they require. And then, getting, feeding them, getting dishes done, laundry, cleaning, like all the things, right? Um, I don't think I allowed myself to really sit in that. But then it also goes to like, I don't think we had enough conversations about it either, right? So while she would occasionally bring it up, I think there's two sides to it, right? Like, I think she may have also felt that she could have maybe been doing better, right? But then also had this like, you should also be helping me do better, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it was just from a lack of really, I don't want to say hearing where she's coming from, but not really knowing where she's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, that there was still that disconnect. So it just made it a tough situation, right? Like sometimes things are just naturally going to get put off, right? Like again, go back to the laundry. Like, you know, in an ideal world, if someone has worn enough clothes now that it's a full load, just knock it out, right?
Right.
But then life also happens, right? And then, oh, now we got kids in sports, and like we're not both home as often as we were previously. So now that turns into maybe two loads, right? It's, I don't know.
All that to say, you now have a full of a appreciation,
Hmm.
an
And
acknowledgement
assistant.
as far as you can, with not having fully reversed roles, right? Um,
Hmm.
that's what I'm seeing is you as you're as the situation changed where you both were not available during the day. Now, when you come home, you're working as a team to get these things done. And out of necessity, you're seeing what has to be done and taking on more responsibility. And in that, you are acknowledging how much she had done kind of on her own.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, again, like the title of the episode says, I want to just give her all the acknowledgement for all those things that she was doing on her own, or largely on her own, right? Um, I appreciate more now what she had tried to communicate to me in those times where she was feeling, stressed out and anxious that things weren't going to get done, or that she wasn't going to have enough time to get those things done. And I would even say, I would apologize for not hearing her fully or understanding fully, right? And it's not to make any sort of excuse. It was just, I think I wasn't in a space, or maybe we, considering this transition, weren't in a space for me to really fully understand. And, now that we are where we are, I am fully appreciative of all the work she's put in. I am now here to, put my best foot forward in helping run the household. And, I'm just kind of making a commitment to move forward and, more, I guess, with a more open mind and a willingness to make it a team effort. And then I'm also thinking about, if the roles were reversed, how would I have dealt with it?
Mm.
And how would I have tried to communicate my frustrations and needs? I think that's a good reflective practice, simply because there may come a time where I might start feeling frustrated that I've got too much on my plate, right? So how can I best be heard, or by having that reflective thought, how can I prepare myself to hear her if it starts leaning back the other way?
That's good. That's a good thought experiment, um, right? Because at this point, you can't reverse roles or make up that situation, but it's good to think about how that would play out. Yeah.
I think we're at time, man. That's all I got on it. Is there anything else you'd like to add? I know it was largely me just going off about the mess that I am.
Well, no, I think it's a good exercise for anyone to hear because you never know when you may be in a situation where one partner is doing more of something than the other, and how to try to manage that space and to really look for ways to acknowledge in that moment and how to empathize with what your partner's going through.
Yeah.
So, thanks for checking us out. Again, if this impacted you in any way, we just appreciate you to share this with someone. Again, you can look us up on all the social media platforms by searching Marriage is Tougher, or you could go to marriagestougher.com to see our episodes and leave us a direct message, or if you want to be a guest, fill out the form. So we appreciate you again for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you next time.
Peace.